Yeah. I'm not even. Yes. Welcome to the Simply Greg Show. Thank you very much to everyone who's locked in with us at the present moment. As you already know, the Simply Greg Show is all about elevating the mind and inspiring a community by spotlighting the hidden gems in our community, which is ordinary people doing extraordinary things. As you already know, today is actually a tribute to the Grenfell Tower inquiry. So we thought, we've had this individual here, our guest with us previously before. And for those who was locked in previously before, you would have known that he told us a lot concerning his story and a lot that happened obviously with the legal system of which we placed our trust upon. But now we're actually going to go into the public inquiry regarding the Grenfell Tower, especially the fact that many of you know on the 14th of every month, there's obviously a silent protest or silent march. And we're waiting for, obviously, it to be looked at in Parliament on the 14th of May. So without further ado, let me introduce the man himself. This is Cole Grant.
Well, hi Greg. Thank you for having me back in here again. It's absolutely a pleasure to be in here, and I feel really grateful. I want to make it absolutely clear from the start that I'm not a spokesperson on behalf of Grenfell. With massive respect to that entire community. They're a beautiful bunch of people going through the worst tragedy that I've ever witnessed. I'm sure all of us have ever witnessed. But I have a direct link, and with my experience with the judiciary and so on, that's why I'm able to say something on that.
And contribute towards that. And please do help us get an understanding of why exactly you are someone of whom is also taking part within what is going on with the decisions, especially when it comes against the judicial system and the failures of the past. So just give us a brief understanding of your history and why exactly we're also talking to you about this.
Okay, so as your listeners may remember from my last visit here, I became involved with the system, if you like, the judicial system, following the death of one of my children. A baby died at the age of 15 months in hospital from dehydration. Thereafter, I was engaged with a law firm who was supposed to be uncovering the circumstances involved in my child's death, and they then deliberately began giving me false interpretation of the law or false advice about the law, telling me that there is no law in this country which allows anyone to sue for false advice, despite the fact that that has existed since 1964. Now, thereafter, I eventually, and now we're trying to avoid going over the history of this, I eventually began suing those lawyers along with the hospital where my son died, and as a result of there being no defense to my case, they could only use the influence of their friends within the judiciary and
to pile it up against you so that you don't obviously have the advantage.
To obstruct justice. And one of the things they did, of course, back then I had no access to media. The mainstream media just went completely silent. If it wasn't eventually for one of our local community stations, I would have had no assistance whatsoever. But initially, I mean, the first time I ever encountered or went to prison, I mean, I hadn't broken no law, hadn't committed no crime, and however, a judge presided over a matter which was being prosecuted by his brother, and that judge gave a warrant for me to be picked up off the street and brought to prison without charge, without trial, without ever passing through a court. And that's where my engagement with the corruption involved in the judiciary started. And instead of at some point those in authority doing something about it, they just shielded the whole thing that was taking place in much the same way that, abusers, whether they be sexual abusers or child abusers, like the Harvey Weinstein or the Jimmy Savile, when the victims are voiceless, then the abuse can continue.
Continues,
And ironically, the judge who was involved in my first ever taste of imprisonment, or being sent 10 weeks I spent in prison that initial time, he died, I hope this is not off the subject, but he died in 2017 just 13 days after Grenfell.
Oh wow.
And it just turns out that his actual name was Roger Grenfell Toulson. So just a coincidence which I picked up. Yeah. But
that was your history, obviously, that brought you into that.
Yeah.
So how does that now link you to, obviously, Grenfell Tower and the inquiry and those of whom are on the panel at the present moment?
Okay, so previously I've had to struggle to get into court. And however, they were trying to get me in prison in 2011, or back in prison in 2011. That gave me an automatic right of appeal. And I appealed and appeared before Moore-Bick, Martin Moore-Bick, the judge who has been appointed
who's chairing the
public inquiry for Grenfell. Now, my grave concern, a very grave and serious concern, is that the fact that he has, the reasons he has given that community for refusing to allow members of that community to sit on the panel with them so that they can have some confidence in the proceedings, he is that to do so would impair his impartiality. And so he's blatantly or bluntly refused, and again, despite the petition being brought to the Prime Minister, they've refused to allow anyone from that community to sit on the panel. Now, as I said, the reason he gave was that it would potentially be biased. However, when I appeared before Martin Moore-Bick in the High Court of Justice in the Strand in 2011, sitting alongside him was a judge who had previously conducted unlawful proceedings which he refused to allow me to be present, despite it being everyone's lawful right to be heard in proceedings where they are being accused or whatever. You are entitled to be there, and they refused me legal aid, so I couldn't afford a lawyer. And they refused me my right to come and represent myself. So those proceedings were unlawful. Now, I was in front of Moore-Bick bringing an appeal, and an appeal which involved the decision of that previous judge. And this judge was sitting on the panel with Moore-Bick. And despite my protestation, saying, no man can be, the law says no man can be a judge in his own cause. The law says that we're entitled to a fair, independent, impartial tribunal. And despite that, Moore-Bick turned to me and said that this is a perfectly lawful convened bench, and his colleague does not have to step down. So that is total hypocrisy. In reality, without having experienced that, I couldn't say what he says about not having members of the Grenfell community on the panel. I couldn't say that was wrong. Because yes, we are entitled to impartiality, although my feeling is that because of the exceptional circumstances involved with Grenfell Tower, I think that they could make exceptional,
exceptions on this occasion.
Exactly. However, as I said, the hypocrisy is that Martin Moore-Bick, and his decision wasn't an error of law. It was a deliberate act. And therefore he acted criminally and perverted the due course of justice. So ironically, just a few days ago, I was driving down Chancery Lane, and he was walking up Chancery Lane, and I shouted out my window, "Martin Moore-Bick," and he just about looked. I shouted out his name again, Martin Moore-Bick. I didn't expect him to come back looking with a broad smile on his face, because he's supposed to be addressed as Sir Martin Moore-Bick. But anyway, he came looking back, and I said, "Oh, Call Grant." He said, "Who?" I said, "Call Grant." I said, "I used to have some respect for the judiciary, but following what you did with regards to my son's case and my false imprisonment and so on and so forth, I said I'm going to use every ounce of breath in my life to expose your corruption." And he said, "Do as you will," and just walked on. But so my concern about him heading this inquiry is that he has a track record of covering up. What adds fuel to my concern is that one of the law firms representing some of the families from Grenfell, Bindman Solicitors, they were the lawyers who were representing me. They gave me, were responsible for giving me false advice about the law. Now, this is another unbelievable element or
so
aspect.
not only, just to bring clarity into what people are listening to, so not only is it that is the judge who you've encountered previously before, who was very unlawful in his decisions that he went against and being hypocritical with obviously the Grenfell inquiry, but at the same time as well, you've got now the legal organisation that actually represented you and gave you misinformation is the same legal organisation that is now representing a few of the families in Grenfell Tower. Is that correct?
Absolutely,
okay.
100%. And it doesn't end there, because one of the solicitors, Caroline Featherstone, assisting the judge with the inquiry, she was a solicitor who was working in the legal department of King's College Hospital when my son died. And Bindman Solicitors conspired with her not to come to some kind of settlement with me with regards the case I had against them for misinformation.
The loss of, misinformation and the loss of your son.
I brought that document with me because I mean it's just unbelievable that all these people are on the same platform in the same venue, and my overwhelming concern is that they've brought people with obvious experience covering up the truth. And I think the worst thing that could happen for the Grenfell family is, no matter how small, any amount of the truth being hidden or brushed on the carpet. You know, as you said with the introduction of your show, the fact is, 10 months down the road, not one single person has been arrested, and we see that they're quite happy to make an example out of people who they say have been claiming falsely that they were you know, and we see we see them trying to damage members of that community by putting out in the media that, oh, they're living in this place and claiming for this and claiming for that, etc. It seems to me that they have an agenda of trying to turn away the public compassion and public support away from that community, so that they can eventually come out with the outcome that they want. I mean, I think that in any other circumstances, there is no doubt in my mind that if that building were owned by you or I or any other, corporation, the chief person in charge would have been arrested, at least arrested. Some action would have been taken, but because of who the victims were or are, and because of who owns or has responsibility for, we can see. And I personally believe that they are taking not only the time to kind of dumb down people's emotions, but time to make sure that they can, the demand for arrest and all those things goes out the window, and all people are interested in is, I think we've seen even with Hillsborough that unless those families had pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and the truth, nothing resembling the truth would have ever come out. And
well, I guess you've got a point there, because when it comes to obviously people who have, who've mentioned unlawfully that they were there, but they wasn't there just to receive compensation. I mean, we've seen their arrest, as quick as possible, and we see that on the news, and obviously I've forgotten the name of one of the individuals has obviously gone past my mind, but we've seen that. But yet it takes this long to still get behind the people responsible for the cladding, for the building itself, or the county, or and so forth, and it's a difficulty till now. And like you said, it's very concerning to know that those who are heading the public inquiry, the team, people of whom have a background themselves of being very unjust when it comes to the legal system.
Indeed.
So this is the thing of which And I guess we're going to go into it because we're going to find out what has been the update so far since obviously you're campaigning as well, and you being involved with some of the family members who are involved in Grenfell, and you also being involved with obviously the silent march and so forth, because it's on the 14th of every month, and also we're going to go into the petition which many people also signed, which was helped by the publicity of Stormzy, which we're going to go through as well. So now that we've understood, obviously that's your main concern, all right, it's just a bench currently at the present moment, and all of them have some form of a history. Your personal interaction and encounter was more so with Moore-Bick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Is there any other concerns that you have for the other judges and individuals that are currently on a panel at the present moment?
Well, Moore-Bick is the only one involved as the judge in the inquiry.
Because he's chairing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think he's appointed some other people to give expert views or whatever. However, there aren't any more judges involved with that inquiry.
Okay.
But in fact, the last Lord Chief Justice, Lord Thomas, who retired, I think, last October. I mean, even him, I had involvement with, because there was a time. There are several members of the judiciary that I could name who have previously acted unlawfully or criminally, and this is something which whether it be Buckingham Palace or Downing Street have all previously referred the issues to the relevant Lord Chancellor or Secretary of State for Justice for those issues, and nothing. They've just turned a blind eye. Just as I mentioned a little while ago, this is how the likes of Harvey Weinstein or Jimmy Savile and those involved in abuse and so on with Oxfam, that when the matter is brought to those with the responsibility for doing something, turn a blind eye. As I said, the victim becomes voiceless. There's nowhere for them to turn, and this is what's happened. I'm to some extent concerned because I have indeed pointed out some of these personally to some of the Grenfell families, yes, and because again, I suppose to some extent I can understand, because in their traumatic state, which no doubt they very much still are, someone who's holding their hand to try and help them across the other side, I see that it must be very difficult for them to let go of that hand. So even though I've pointed out that Bindmans, who are representing some of the families, this is what they've done in the past, I don't think it's that they don't care, but it's just that they're afraid to let go of that hand who they see as being on their side.
And it's also a lack of knowledge as well of an understanding to what's going on behind the scenes, because many of us, we trust of what we are informed and trust what we are given, the information that is given to us, and don't believe that there's anything else going on behind the scenes, because that is difficult for us to fathom, and when someone like yourself is giving us the contrary, information of which is going on behind the scenes, is we have to wrap our heads around it in order to now realize that, okay, we need to take more ownership of what's going on in order to now question, obviously, the system itself, making sure that it is dealt with in a fair manner and nothing is actually hidden. Because by putting a team or individuals or the inquiry team there that are heading it, whom themselves have a background of being unlawful, it is difficult to now get justice on the other side and say that we're going to get something when really the team and those heading it are unjust. I mean, even Moore-Bick himself was retired and came back for retirement to actually take on this inquiry. So how does that make any sense when there are many other relevant judges that can also head the inquiry at that period of time?
Do you know, I think that he couldn't have, if had it not been something as big as Grenfell, he might have stayed in retirement. But something which is going to absolutely throw him in the eyes of the public. As I said, when I saw him previously, because he would be appearing in court in his wigs and so on and so forth, no member of the public would probably recognise him. But now Grenfell have made him a celebrity type individual who people can call out to on the street. And he, as I said, he came smiling, came back looking with a big broad smile on his face. No, I'm really concerned that for him to have come back out of retirement but I suppose it was irresistible. You know, getting that call, being thrown in the public arena on the biggest platform ever.
But would there have been someone else who was also or more qualified to actually be heading that inquiry than someone of whom has had a past of?
Obviously I'm biased, so I'm going to say definitely yes. If I hadn't been aware of his past, I would have probably had nothing to say about this man. But because of that direct, it's not a question of he did that once, but next time he'll be okay. He broke the law. Period. If you or I break the law, there's consequences for that. But you know what? When I first became my first contact with the Grenfell community, I was invited or told at least about a public meeting which was taking place. It was suggested that I should go along there and introduce myself and so on, and I did, and I made a speech about Moore-Bick and the evidence that I had on him. From that night, that was when some of the families or community members came and approached me afterwards, and I think, of course, the mainstream media was there, and some of this may have aired, or they became aware of that contact. So at the time, since August 2014, there'd been the state, the authorities, through the corrupt judiciary, have been taking a minimum of £300 a month from my salary. Now, following my contact with Grenfell, which was either in May or June, but in July, they stopped interfering with my salary, stopped taking money from my salary up until December. Well, in fact, they only came back to my salary in January of this year. And I suspect their initial reaction was that I might have obtained publicity of what they've been doing, and more so expose what's been going on. So they immediately let up on my salary.
We'll have to pause on that for the meantime. Catch you on the other side of the break. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone who's locked in with us at the present moment. This is a Simply Greg show, all about elevating the mind and inspiring the community by spotlighting hidden gems in our community, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Today what we're doing is tributing this show to the Grenfell Tower public inquiry. As we all know, for many of us who have been engaged in signing a petition, which was publicised even more by Stormzy, and we'll go into the update of that in terms of the numbers, what it was previously and what it became after from that publicity. And that will be on the 14th of May, I believe. 14th of May, that will be looked into Parliament, right? Yeah, we're going to mention that later on as well. But what we're doing is talking to Cole Grant at the present moment about his journey of what he had first and foremost with directly with Moore-Bick, who is obviously the judge in charge of the public inquiry. And Cole is just letting us know, obviously, of the injustice going on behind the scenes that we ought to be aware of, and the families of those involved in Grenfell, so that we can also actually apply more pressure to ensure that they do put a panel on the board or on a bench of whom are actually more qualified to deal with it through the judicial system in a way that is just and not unjust. Because if we're going to have any ounce of a chance of getting a positive result at the end of it all, then it has to be a panel of people of whom have a history of obviously going in line with things. And obviously your issue with Moore-Bick was what your encounter that you had previously, especially with your case when you lost your son due to misinformation from the hospitals. What I'm going to do before that, because whilst we're in the break, I'm not going to go too much into information. I just want to acknowledge some people who are currently with us at the present moment. Thank you very much to everyone who's locked in. We greatly do appreciate that. Let me just go all the way down. So Nels, good afternoon. Cole, welcome back to the Simply Greg show. Yeah, thank you very much for that. So Julie, hi Julie, thank you very much for joining us as well. So yes, hi Greg, yes, clarity. As I understand, the residents wanted a full panel, not just one judge to listen and decide the outcome of the inquiry of Grenfell case. Yes, what could you say about that?
They wanted family members from the community, just so that they could have a bit of confidence in what was taking place.
A diverse kind of...
Precisely. So that, because Moore-Bick has no idea about the lifestyle that they've lived or had to live or been living. He has absolutely. I mean, you know, the initial, if I could, the initial
not
reason,
too much into it because the break will cut up in a sec. So this is just for Julie. But carry on.
The initial reason why the community didn't like the judge or want that judge is because he previously engaged in a case which could be described as ethnic cleansing.
Okay.
Yeah. And he sided on the side of Westminster Council to ship one of their social housing tenants out. And when the tenant appealed against it, went to the appeal court, and the appeal court ruled unanimously that Moore-Bick acted unlawfully. His decision was unlawful. And so, you know, but otherwise he was giving this council permission to move out someone from simply because they were a social housing tenant. And they were trying to move them 50 miles out of London.
Wow.
So that reason the community they still don't like, they're still not happy with him. They're just having to go along with it because it would seem at the moment they have no choice.
Okay, that's great. And so I hope that's given you some clarity as well. Julie, you're very right in what you're saying, and he's given you more of a background there as well. Secondly, so what we got here, so 10 months down the line after such a heartbreaking incident, there's still been no arrest or any part held responsible. Definitely. Julie, that should be so more experts to help involved as a panel, and that's very right. You know, we agree with you as well, Julie. I agree with that anyway. And so great. So thank you very much, Nels. Thank you, Lily, for joining us. Thank you, Julie. And there needs to be a genuine panel. Yep, I agree. Yes, it's supposed to be a public inquiry, so there's clarity in what is actually going on behind the scenes. So obviously the system could be held accountable for the unjust, or be held accountable according to the laws of what they should be operating by.
Can I just make a comparison?
Cool, hold up, you make it on air because it's 30 seconds now. Please do like, share, if that's great. We're jumping back on air right now, 93 FM, Slam Radio UK, and we're also going on air on digital dial as well, and we're also on Facebook. So if you are loving what you're hearing and you want any more answers to anything that we're speaking about, please feel free to jot them down, and we'll be more than happy to respond. Like, share, let's get the word out so that we as the people could actually be more stronger and ensure that the system is being judged according to what is lawful. Thank you very much for everyone joining us on the Simply Greg Show. As you already know, the Simply Greg Show is all about elevating the mind and inspiring the community. So thank you very much to everyone who's joining and who's locked in with us on the FM dial, and everyone who's locked on with us as well on digital dial. And thank you to everyone who's locked in with us on Facebook. I really do love our Facebook family. They always turn up. They've always got questions, and they always have some input towards the discussion, which we greatly do appreciate. Exactly. Now, for those who are listening, whether it be on FM or digital app as well, you feel free to text in at any point in time, which is 07375 752271. That's 07375 752271. That's the number you can text in at any point in time, and we'll be more than happy to respond to you. Today, what we're doing is a tribute to the Grenfell Tower. As you already know, there's always a silent march on the 14th of every month to obviously tribute and get some justice into the situation, as it has been delayed long enough. The incident that occurred on the 14th of June last year, until now there has been no arrest or no one who has had to take responsibility in the legal system for what has happened. So we're outraged by that. So we're speaking to Cole, as Cole was informing us about obviously the unjust panel, first and foremost headed by Moore-Bick himself, and he's had personal encounters with Moore-Bick in terms of legal cases that he's had, of which was actually wrongfully or unlawfully actually decided or judged. So now that we're obviously here, we've talked about your journey and we've talked about Moore-Bick and so forth. So from your personal interactions with some of the families, or even being in the march and so forth, and just the public inquiry in itself, I mean, what can you tell us about some of the updates from what you've seen or what you've heard, or the progress since last time you was here as well?
Okay, so can I just say, if I could just point out one little tiny thing, because we've had a similar tragedy in Russia where 64 people perished, including a number of children. Whether it be a photo call opportunity or not, the difference there is that within a week, at least 5 people were arrested.
Yeah.
And those people
Similar.
do you know what I'm saying? It's obvious because people have responsibility, whether it's for, as in that case, fire exits, fire alarms, you know. I mean, whoever
things
signed,
that have to pass the test in terms of health and safety.
It's not difficult to pin down who was responsible for this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
And those people should have been or should be arrested for their accountability. So there's no question about it. But this country currently at the moment trying to put down Putin with an allegation without having presented us with any evidence, but at least we can all see evidence that here no one has no authority has taken to arrest anyone, but we've seen arrests taking place in Russia. Now, I've been trying, as you know, most of us who are not from that community, as you're doing here now, supporting that community through your radio show. I've been going there whenever I can, on the 14th of every month, to join in and march with. It's a very powerful event. It's the first time since I've been going there. First time I've been involved in a silent march. I've previously been involved in a lot of very noisy marches, but this one is equally as powerful.
Wow.
And it's been a pleasure to actually go along and do however little it is. And I've even managed to book off the rest of all of this year, make sure that every single the 14th of every month
you're available.
And available to go along. So it's ironic to some extent. You know, we've become, and with good reasons, so untrusting of the system, because as you mentioned, the petition, the petition which was delivered by members of that community in December last year to Downing Street, I think at the time it had less than 20,000. I could be wrong. Forgive me if I am wrong. However, Theresa May was unmoved by that petition, and I mean, as I said, for me, they could make an exception. They could stipulate, because of the exceptional circumstances. Under all other circumstances, this would not happen. But because of our compassion, our need for the community to be reassured that we're only interested in exposing the truth, that if this is going to make them give them confidence, then they could have, I'm sure the whole world would have endorsed that. But they refused to budge. And I think
roughly 10,000, 20,000 petitions, you said.
And thereafter, was it not the Brits, was it the Mobile? The Brits? When Stormzy did his thing, and within a couple of days, the petition exceeded the 100,000 required for Parliament to debate it. And so they eventually agreed to debate it in Parliament. Now, normally, sometimes...
On that part there, we have to acknowledge Stormzy's input, you know, obviously using influence.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people don't really know how much that went up from one to, you know, because he posted it on his Twitter as well. And he was trying to get all his fans to actually just sign the petition, and it managed to go up from just about roughly 20,000 all the way up to more than 100,000, because as you already know, any petition has to reach more than 100,000 or 100,000 in order for it to actually be discussed or debated in Parliament. Otherwise, it doesn't actually get taken as severe for that. So in a couple of days, went from 20,000 signed all the way up to 100,000 or probably more. So Otai, what's it called, Stormzy, and thank you very much for that as well.
Absolutely,
so carry on.
Absolutely. I absolutely loved him before I loved him even more because you know, for him to do what he did, once upon a time, an artist could. That would curtail their career. To get involved in any politics, that could just end their career there and then.
Because even so, I think he's also mentioned he's been through a few confrontations because of that. You know, like his house was his door was kicked down. You know, just the next day after he'd done all of that on the award show. So there comes a lot of controversy with that as well.
There you go, and you know, in another place, in another time, I think we'd all have to be keeping an eye on his life to make sure that he's safe. But yes, him having done that, it spiraled to, I think we're in excess of 150,000 now, and that forced them to debate it. Now they know that the families march on the 14th of every month.
Yeah.
And the debate they've scheduled to take place on the 14th of May. So on one of the anniversaries of when the march is about to take place. I don't know if there's a hidden agenda there, but if I were that community, if I had any influence in that community, I would tell them or suggest to them that they should do that march on the 14th of May outside Parliament. That they should bring their numbers to Parliament to make sure that whilst the debate is going to force, in fact, members of Parliament to take part in the debate, because sometimes with these debates we only find 1 or 2 MPs inside, and and as far as they're concerned, Parliament debated it. You know? But now, if the family are there in Parliament Square, which some or 1 or 2 people can go into the public gallery, to listen to the debate.
Attention into,
precisely, and that will if they don't attend, that exposes them, and so hopefully the psychology would be that would make for a good number to be in there, so that it can be properly
and debated. I think that makes sense, because if there's ever anything that you really do care about in terms of you want justice being served in terms of that, there's an onus in taking responsibility and making sure that you see it through, because otherwise if you just leave a case on someone else's hands and think, okay, they will deal with it, then they'll only deal with it as suffice to know that how much you actually care about the whole situation. Otherwise, if you are more pressing to the situation, then they will take it according to your relevance and your severity of it. And that's what needs to be done from what you're saying. You know, some people can obviously go in the public gallery, and some people could also do the march, the silent march outside Parliament. And, you know, it may also draw more attention into that environment. So that, do you understand? We know that both inside out,
absolutely,
there's something being done.
Absolutely, I think with this is the way things have become, so that we have a system which is supposed to deliver justice, and we're supposed to be able to rely on that. Unfortunately, we can't. And as you just described, we have to keep an eye. And in fact, that's the very reason why they put public galleries in courts and public gallery in a place like Parliament, because without that public interest, they will just deem things whichever way it suits themselves. And again, I make reference to Hillsborough. If not for public pressure, then you know. So if we don't apply that public pressure in this matter, in a matter so grave, because effectively I mean, it's already cost more than anyone could ever expect to pay. It's cost lives, at least 71, 72, at least those numbers.
From what has been declared.
Precisely. Now for them, financially, the whole thing obviously has already shown to be very, very costly. It's an irony, in fact, isn't it? Because it would have been far, far less to make sure the cladding that was around Grenfell Tower in the first place wasn't flammable. Do you know what I'm saying? So that people would have had a chance. My view is this: on when they, and this is why there ought to be or should have been already arrests. Whenever they signed off that cladding on Grenfell Tower, you know, it's not on a ground floor flat or a house. You know, it's a tower block, right? A high rise. That person who signed off health and safety there, they said, God forbid, should there ever be a fire.
Wow.
I would imagine. Wow. Do you know what I'm saying?
They signed it off, but yet with that.
Kind of. Yeah. You know, because they would have, there is no way they could not have known. And I noticed the language that they've been using. At the time when the cladding was signed or approved, it was lawful. It's not lawful now. They couldn't use it now. But so what made the difference? What test was it subjected to then that
to
made
pass.
it to be able to pass. So there is no way they can use, in my view, it was lawful at the time. This is the sort of thing I don't mean to drift, but this is the sort of excuse that Tony Blair gave when we ask about, reparations for slavery. Slavery was law. It was law at the time. Do you know? It's offensive. It's offensive, and that's the level of contempt. I just hope, as I said, I will continue to give whatever support I can to that community, because pressure and continued pressure, relentless pressure, need to be kept on. So far, the reason why I haven't sought publicity, if you like, directly through there, is because I've not wanted to appear as if I've got my own agenda. Yeah. My only objective is to expose that judge. Expose that judge. If he had been a judge who they were happy with in the beginning, I don't think I would have probably felt, I don't want to get in their way of getting justice. But because they are dissatisfied with him, and because I'm holding evidence of his previous criminal activity, that's why I've been trying. But I've not been trying to push that down their throats.
But you've just provided the evidence that is necessary so that people can see that we certainly need a change of judge chairing that particular inquiry.
Precisely. And I think, but however, if he should remain, once the inquiry starts in full, I will be out there, with other members of the public, and with the banners about what Moore-Bick has done, etc., etc. There is absolutely no way that I'm going to sit down and sit quiet. This man covered up the circumstances involved in the death of a child. He assisted my spending 6 solid years in prison, and turned around and said, that's water under a bridge. That's the term he used to describe when he tried to tell me, I should just forget that and try to get on with my life. And of course, because I've been trying to apply pressure my little way, or in whichever way that I can, having conducted a 2-year campaign outside the High Court when he was still on the judiciary, then their reply was to start attacking my salary. And they're doing it in the full knowledge, that there's effectively nothing I can do, so to speak,
to weaken you in that regard.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to everyone who's locked in with us at the present moment. We greatly do appreciate your time, whether it be on air or whether it be on digital or whether it be on Facebook. We greatly do appreciate it. I'm sure there's a few comments there which I'm going to read out as well. As you already know, you're listening to the Simply Greg Show, which is all about elevating the mind and inspiring the community by spotlighting the hidden gems in our community, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Today, we decided to actually tribute this particular show to the Grenfell Tower Inquiry, as it seemed to be something that has been taking a long time in order to actually get into any arrest or any responsibility for those involved in what has happened, obviously, so far. As we all know, there's a silent march on the 14th of every month, so we thought to actually also headline this for this particular show today. We're speaking with Cole Grant, and his main aim was he had concerns about, obviously, the judge chairing the public inquiry at the present moment, which is Moore-Bick, because he's had previous encounters before with Moore-Bick, where Moore-Bick has made unlawful decisions to which he is very much aware of which should not have been applied or gone forth. So it's just basically saying a change of panel in order to actually get a fair trial in terms of the public inquiry as we move forward. So thank you for everyone who's also locked in with us as well. So let me just obviously go back through certain comments. So Ruth, thank you very much, Ruth, for locking in with us. We greatly do appreciate that. That's absolutely shocking, but not surprised, as this seems to be a tactic to weary the people's patience on these serious matters. And you're very right, Ruth, and thank you very much for that. I mean, look how long it's been taken for anything to be done. But when it's come to those people who've been fraudulent about saying that they're victims, they're already in jail right now, and like you said, the situation in Rashford, there's already, obviously arrest in a few days. So you're very right, Ruth. Obviously the longevity of it is taking its toll by slowly going down. And that's why it's great what Stormzy done by raising their awareness up again and saying, no, we haven't forgotten, putting it back at the forefront. So I hope the people win this inquiry and the corporations involved are punished to the highest extent. Thank you very much for that, Ruth. We greatly appreciate that. So yes, thank you, caller. Julie says, thank you very much. Agreed. Yes, I heard that too. Compassion to put themselves in the Grenfell residence. Lindsay, thank you very much for joining us as well. So please feel free to comment and share your views. Blah, blah, blah. So shout out to Stormzy. Yep, thank you very much. We're a population that is supposed to rely on the justice system, but we can't, and our petitions being taken into consideration or valued. Thank you very much for that. We greatly do appreciate. So if you guys have anything more to say, please feel free to jot it down, and we're more than happy to also, ask and call any questions. Please feel free to show your hearts as well, thumbs up, as what I love about what Cole mentioned earlier on is we can all do something within the platforms that we have to continue to keep the fire or the fuel going when it comes to Grenfell, because at the end of the day, if that was my family, your family, or anyone else around you, you would want that support to continue so that it isn't long lost and forgotten. And only by the public actually coming on applying that pressure can we now actually put the judicial system to the laws of which is actually finding itself accountable to, so that we can actually receive justice for what has happened, because that was just unjust. Obviously what happened on the 14th of June, and we have to remember the lives of those who have been lost. We have to remember the families who've been affected. We can't just go on and just bat an eyelid and think, oh, it's long lost and forgotten, because if that happened to you, you wouldn't want the same. You would want people to get behind you as well. So what more can we do, and how can anyone connect with you if they wish to do so, or what going forward? Because I think we're all waiting now for the outcome of the 14th of May.
Well, I mean,
anything else that...
Okay, so the debate that's going to take place in Parliament, I don't know what the outcome of that will be.
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not they may be able to influence the Prime Minister to change her mind. That's the 14th of May. I think the inquiry is due to start, I think it's the 21st or 24th of May, so 10 or so days after the debate in Parliament. Mm-hmm. And thereafter, as I said, should it start and get going, we have a moral duty and an obligation to give to maintain as much pressure as possible, to give that community as much support as we can. I would say attend the venue, whether we be outside in numbers or inside, to make sure. I think again they're even trying to control the people who attend the public gallery. In fairness, they said, families first, of course one understands that. Yeah. But it's almost like if you get there, even if there are seats available, and if you're not directly from Grenfell, they probably say you can't come in. Just a way of kind of keeping things behind closed doors effectively. Yeah. But yeah, I would say turn up at the venue in Holborn, and whenever you can, if you can, join the silent march. And show your support in whatever way you possibly can.
From one of the statements we see online, the public inquiry second procedure hearing took place this week, the 21st of March, which was obviously last month. Mm-hmm. Legal representatives of court participants will have access to all relevant documents, and they will be able to offer opening and closing statements at certain hearings. They will also be able to suggest lines of questioning for witnesses. Ahead of the evidential hearing. Each of the victims will be individually commemorated. So let's hope that there is obviously some success to the back of that as well. Thank you very much to everyone who's been locked on. We greatly do appreciate that as well. Please like, share, show your hearts, and we certainly do appreciate that as we continue to really just remember those of whom have been affected, and the families who are still with us who have a lost one who has been lost to this incident, and hopefully we can all play our part to kind of get justice served as the people, which is really what is important, because you know, if that happened to me, I'd want you to do the same, and if that happened to you, I'm sure you'd want us to do the same as well. So let's just remember the lives of those affected. Let's do the best that we can. As you said, attend the marches, which is on the 14th of every month. So if you're ever free, do so. If you can connect yourself with an organisation to involve with supporting, please feel free to do so. If you know any families, do connect with them and see how you can support. We didn't get to talk about the funding because, you know, that was another thing, you know, everyone actually being rehoused and so forth, but that's another story. But how can anyone connect with you, and any last words from you?
Okay, so I have a website, Campaign for Truth and Justice. The web address is ctj.org.uk, so that's ctj.org.uk. That's got loads and loads of information, got evidence of what the judiciary has done, and details about Moore-Bick and so on and so forth. It's even got the track of Storms at his performance at the awards show. I'll be, as I said, continuing to give my support to that community in whichever way that I can. And I really, really appreciate. Thank you, everyone who's been listening and commenting. It's much appreciated. And yes, as you said, you know, Grenfell Tower is us all. It's all of us. We don't have to wait. We don't have to wait for it to be us. You know, I mean, the other thing that, if I may, just happening in our community at the moment is you know, the violence amongst our youngsters. It's things like when we are treated, when our community members are treated in the way that Grenfell Tower community was treated, it's like
sending the wrong signs to the youth, because they see that nothing is ever done about anything that is unjust.
Exactly. Yeah. So you take hope away from them. They can't visualize that in any way whatsoever. So as far as they're concerned, you know, they leave school or leave college, have no job, have no social housing, is no longer available, etc., etc. What's the future for them? You know, I'm not saying that it's any one particular thing, but all of these things...
It's not helping.
Precisely, it's not helping at all. If I could just finally say that...
very quickly, because we're going to...
Okay, so on the 23rd of April, I'll be at Inner London Crown Court supporting a radio presenter from Galaxy FM, who they're prosecuting for broadcasting without license. He's decided to take a stance and say not guilty, because he wants to turn it into a political platform to say why the community stations are needed, because we don't get the support necessary from mainstream media.
That'll be another thing. Thank you very much for everyone who's listening to us online and everyone who's with us on the FM dial. We greatly do appreciate you. Catch you on the other side. Yeah, I have to be brutal because of the time. Yes, I'm aware of that. Thank you very much to everyone who's been connected with us. We greatly do appreciate you. As you can see, we've obviously gone on an ad break on the other side there. We greatly do appreciate Lyndon. Thank you very much for connecting with us as well. Usha, thank you very much for connecting. And we greatly do appreciate everyone who's actually mentioned something or said something or asked any question. Please feel free once again to like and share, push that out there, and so that we as a people can actually show that unity that goes out there to make a difference, and we hold our judicial system accountable to the laws of which is actually imposed for us to actually operate by under this civilization. So thank you once again. We greatly do appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Simply Greg Show is all about elevating the mind and inspiring the community by spotlighting the hidden gems in our community, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Today was called Grant. Next week we've got another amazing individual who we'll have here in the studio as well. And if you're not connected with us as yet, my question to you is why not?
Indeed.
Right? Why not? Why are you not connected with us? When you see anything of greatness within our community that's coming up, that is actually reputable enough, you know, and it's helping bring unity or helping to just, you know, just bring inspiration with the community, why not? Why not get behind it? So if you've never actually connected with us before, click on a Simply Greg Show, go on our Facebook page. If you like what you see, like what you see. So like and follow, stay connected with us, because every week we'll always have something or someone someone from the community that can speak to us and share information of which is relevant to our community as well. So please do feel free to like and share it across so we can get more information out there, and at least we can show some form of unity within our community in order to actually achieve anything. Last words from you, Cole?
Well, once again, thank you very much for having us back here today, and do get involved. Thank you.
Great. So until then...
And a great show, by the way.
That's it. So I paid him to do that. But until then, guys, catch you next week, 12 to 2. Make sure you're tuned in. Simply Greg, Captain Greg, saying see you later. Have a prosperous weekend. Be good and be blessed. All the best. Bye-bye.